The power of standing still. Have you ever felt stuck at one point in your life where you feel like you do not know what to do? You feel like you have to make a decision, but you're so scared of going wrong or making the wrong decision, and you end up not making a decision at all. This episode is for you. It's for those people who are actually going through turbulent times in their lives where they have to make big decisions. And I invite you today to join me in this episode as we try and navigate that aspect of our lives where we have to make big decisions and we're under pressure and we get stressed and we actually end up not even making that decision. Sometimes it's not because we do not want better of our lives, but it's because we're so scared of being wrong and actually making a decision that is actually going to throw us off the track that we want to go, off the path of wanting to reach our goals and dreams. So please don't forget to like, share, subscribe this episode, and talk about it with other people, with like-minded people who will be interested in this content. Remember that with your support, we'll continue making such content, and who knows, maybe we'll end up in a studio one day. But the point I'm trying to make is, without wasting any time, your support means a lot, and it is only through your support that this podcast will grow from strength to strength. Without wasting any time, I think we should get into what we have planned for today. There are points in my life where I have felt as though I'm walking through fog. I have to make decisions and I cannot make the decision. And this has brought feelings of inadequacy, feelings of whether am I not steadfast in the goals I have? Am I not serious enough? Why is it hard for me to make a decision? I'm sure you listening right now, you have a testimony in your life where you were dealt with a situation and you just didn't know how to deal with it. And for me, I take it back to 2021. I think I was doing my second year. Everyone was in this frenzy, this excitement of applying for articles. And for some reason, I didn't feel like I should, at that time. But I nonetheless continued applying for articles, And I think the reason why I felt not, excited about it was because I came from a background where I had people around me who were attorneys and who were actually, running practices and all of that. And I think the closest is like my role model, my late uncle, who was running his own practice until he died. And for me, I was like, I want to do something different. At that time, I was not exposed to corporate. I didn't know what corporate was. But I continued applying. But there was a part of me that said, am I doing the right decision? Is this what I'm supposed to do? And at that time, there's a friend of mine, I won't mention his name, but he knows that I was really struggling with this in trying to decide whether I should not take, the conventional route of doing articles, but rather go to the bar. But at the same time, like, there were conflicting voices on how this is a good decision or not. And this brings me back to what I always say in the episodes. If you listen to the content or if you've seen previous episodes, I always emphasize the point that sometimes we go out there and we try and seek advice from people when we're not actually seeking advice, but we're actually seeking validation. So it's important to seek people's counsel, but sometimes that shouldn't actually deter you from what you actually want to do. So without deviating from the main point, which was to make a decision, I had to make a decision. And I had to weigh the options at hand as to what are the prospects of me getting work when I get to the bar? Who do I know at the bar? Am I capable in terms of skill at this point to get the best matters in the country when I'm at the bar, So those are the type of things that I had to weigh as opposed to, being in a firm, doing the groundwork and actually building myself from there. And I found the other one more, attractive for me. So there's a lot that we don't discuss, in weighing the two, and I found out that being an attorney for me was, more broadened and more flexible, in that if I was really, really, really inclined to litigation, I could still do it as an attorney. I could still do other work, commercial work as well. So for me, that was like the best of both worlds, in a way. And that is what we need to look at when we're making decisions. Like, you need to be real with yourself. In being caught with two options, for instance, look at the options, weigh the options, and try and remove the emotion out of it. Try and remove the emotion out of it and be realistic. And sometimes what I've learned is that as young people, we attach every phase of our lives with permanence. We think that if I do this, if I enroll for this, or if I work here, it's forever. It's not forever. You can change. I've spoken to so many people who started out, in another sector, and they changed even within the law. For those who are in law, who said, look, I was litigation attorney, I ended up a corporate attorney, or I was a corporate attorney, I ended up litigation attorney, or I started off as an attorney and I moved on to the bar. So we seek to want to cast things in stone, in the sense that because you're doing this, yes, you might have a long-term vision for yourself, but let us not bind ourselves to things. Let us allow ourselves to be fluid. Let us allow ourselves to be versatile. Let us allow ourselves to be adaptable to what is at hand, to what is trending, to us changing. As you grow, your interests change. What you liked 5 years ago might not be of interest to you right now. So we need to always try and do things. I'm not saying just look at the short term, but we need to be at a point where, in as much as we are having this, long-term vision of our goals and what we want to achieve in our careers or even in our personal life, we need to understand that nothing is permanent. You might change, you'll chop and change, and that is perfectly fine, So I taught myself that okay, I might go this route right now, but it doesn't mean that I am bound to this route. And the only thing that happens is, because I've heard some people say, no, but you cannot say it's cast in stone. It's not cast in stone, sorry, because what happens is that you will have wasted 10 years of your life. And I don't believe that. I believe that everything in our lives, and by that I mean like our forms of trade or whatever one may be doing, is interconnected, right? You might be in a different sector, but there is something that you are going to, that being in that sector will help you in your new role. And I make this example with just seeing some of my colleagues, right? And how we adapted to the workplace. Those who had jobs prior to us taking on articles, or those who had jobs before, us doing articles, and us who came straight from university and doing articles, it was a different ball game from them. It was just okay, it's a job, it's a different job. Whereas with us, we had never been employees before. So the point I'm trying to make is, as a person, nothing is a waste. Nothing is useless. Everything compounds. And what you do, even the extracurricular things that one may do, for instance, I podcast, right? And if I'm in a professional setting where I'm at work and I'm expected to do a presentation, that doesn't come off hard for me, right? And then you'll get someone else who does something different. For instance, someone who is fascinated by, tech or PCs. And at work, that compounds to, making their job better, in the sense that, okay, they'll be able to navigate those tools more efficiently and, than people who are not used to that. So it's okay to change your mind. Like, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to be at a point where you're like, I want to actually do something else. I want to actually try something different, right? And in making that decision, like, there's so much that comes with making decisions. And I did allude earlier on that I did allude to how we are so scared of making the wrong decision, but there are other factors that come into play, right? It may be financial, factors. It may be the fact that you feel like you are inadequate or you have imposter syndrome, right? There may be so many different reasons that are stopping you from going for what you want and making that decision. And in being at that point, you need to understand that you need to weigh your options. And in weighing your options, you need to understand that this is your journey. It's not Bob's or it's not, Masande's journey. It's your journey. And it won't be the same as the other person's journey. Like, I always feel like even in the people that we admire sometimes, like, we are trying so much to copy and paste what they're doing that even when it comes to our journeys, we want them to be the same as their journeys. And it's completely fine to, do something that people don't know, or go on a route where people don't know, be on unfamiliar territory. It's fine. It doesn't mean you're lost. It doesn't mean you're just doing things differently and you're just going on a path that no one has taken before. And when you are at that crucial point, you cannot take advice from people who have never went through that. Like, you can't ask someone who is living an unhealthy life how to stay healthy. I don't know, I think that analogy is not really great, but the point I'm trying to make is that this is your own journey to make. And in making that journey, you need to be steadfast and not look at what the person next to you is doing, because that does influence our decisions a lot, because we're like, yo, abantu bazothini, I'm going to be laughed at, who else has done this? I've found myself sometimes, struggling with the fact that I am working as a candidate attorney in a corporate firm, and I run a podcast sometimes, But I had to learn that, look, I am Snalo, right? And I'm not going to look at what another lawyer is doing. I don't know what another lawyer is doing, but this is what I'm doing. So let's strive for authenticity. Let's strive to be ourselves. Let's strive not to, mimic what other people are doing, but let us from within try and source our powers so that we can be the best that we can be for ourselves, and then we can pour out, what we have built for ourselves to other people. And I think, like, if you've followed my content creation journey, you will know that I started off on TikTok with content. And because at the time, the 10-minute videos are a new thing. At that time, I think you had a minute and I think 2 minutes to record. But I felt like I should do more. And if you follow my story, you'll understand that I contemplated on starting the podcast for a very long time, for like 3 years. I didn't have the courage to start it, and I kept on building excuses, but I finally did. So if you check my content on TikTok or LinkedIn, or on the podcast, right, you see the polished version of it, but there's been so much war behind the scenes. And, it's always I think, in the near future, I will try and get, the Rise community into the behind the scenes aspect of things of the podcast. And I want to take you back to two moments. The first moment is there was a point last year where I decided to end the podcast, right? And at that point, Rise was rising. Excuse the pun. Rise was growing, and there were I had a lot of guests lined up for the show. I was looking at investing in the production of the show, and I was very optimistic about where the show was going. And then I don't know what came upon me, but I think also my career in law, things accelerated to a point where they were taking shape fast. I had board exams, I had a master's, and I remember sitting down and asking myself, do I keep juggling these things? Am I being effective? Or will I risk burning out because I'm doing all these things? And so I asked myself that, do I pause the podcast and come back stronger later? And I remember I issued a statement on my Instagram, because that's where I usually share a lot of, the podcast content that I share. And I said, no, I want to focus on myself. I don't know what I was thinking. And then I spoke to a friend of mine who's also a podcaster. I was trying to explain to him. And he was like, And I was like, say something, tell me something. Tell me I'm stupid for doing this, or tell me, okay, this is the best decision you've ever made, And he never gave me that. And I remember I said that day, it was a Friday, and I came back home, and I said, alone, and thinking, what am I doing? Do I still want to do this? What does this mean to me? What does this mean to the people who have come to me and said, please don't stop doing this? What does this mean for, what is the reason why I started this? Does the reason why I started this still remain? Does it still stand? Have I fulfilled that reason? Have I done my job, right? Because I always have the thing that if I commit myself to a project, I need to fully see it through. But I have not seen it through. So I was like, okay, I retracted those statements and I went grinding again, And for me, those things happen, right? You will make decisions in error sometimes. And it doesn't matter that you made the decision in error. What matters is how you actually bounce back and you actually did the contrary to what you had initially, decided. And it's okay to make a bad decision. I think that's also something we don't emphasize. We're always fixated on being the best, on being perfect, not making mistakes. But it's okay to make a bad decision. There's a way to come back from it. It's okay to say I was wrong and swallow your pride and ugobe, ngesixhosa kuthiwa ugobe, and accept that, okay, I messed up here. But redirect yourself and tell yourself that this is what I'm going to be doing now. And then, so I was like, I must continue, and it wasn't easy because I felt like I was letting people who were dedicated to the show and the followers and the listeners of the show, I felt like I was letting them down, right? But I chose to pause. But here we are. We're back and more focused, and I can tell you that I love what I'm doing. And it complements and refines everything else that I do. But that is not, let me not dwell on that. I think the second thing I decided to do is to take law seriously. Not that I didn't take it seriously before, but to go all in. I was really scared of people thinking, this guy is just fixated on the podcast thing. He's not into law. I love law. And it's so funny because, I decided to pursue law. I made a decision in grade 10 that I'm going to do law. I dropped maths, I dropped physics, I dropped accounting, and I took on geography, maths literacy, and history because I was so excited about what was to come with university and everything that I started downloading university prospectuses. And when I went to law, I saw, I don't need maths, I don't need physics. So why am I tormenting myself with, periodic table elements and, Pythagoras? Okay, Pythagoras is with sine and tan and cos, And I decided to stop. And that was a decision. So, yeah, I think the second point, going all in, trying to establish myself as a lawyer. And yeah, so you make decisions, and sometimes we need to understand that in making decisions, you're not going to feel great. You're not going to feel good. You're not going to feel amazing. You're not going to feel out of this world, excited, happy, It's going to be hard. You're going to feel uncomfortable. And that's how you grow. You guys know, they say that growth happens in discomfort. So you might be making a good decision, but it's not going to feel great, right? Just because you're making a decision and you're not feeling well or you're feeling uncomfortable about it doesn't mean that it's a wrong decision or it's a bad decision. I think it's very important to emphasize that. In making decisions, it's so important for you to try and remove the emotion out of it. Like, be strict about what it is that you want to achieve. Be realistic about the circumstances around you and go for what you want to do. That's all you need to do. But other than that, I think it's important that, deciding is not an event. It's not an event, but the more you decide, the more confident you get. So you always need to make decisions, right? Even deciding to waking up, like the time you're waking up, that is a decision. To start your side hustle, small decisions compound into confidence. So it's the little things, how you start your day. You're making a decision. And it's important for you to take that initiative and to go for those things, right? So I think we should let go of that idea that a decision has to be earth-shaking. It doesn't have to be earth-shaking. Small decisions compound into confidence, and sometimes the most powerful decisions are quiet. They don't make noise. They are not for the world to know. They are not worthy to be posted. They just come within you and from you and for you. And that is okay. But we need to get that in making decisions, we are building ourselves. It is for ourselves. It's not for other people. And we need to put ourselves first so that we can realize, the result of those decisions. I think as we close the podcast episode today, I want to leave you with this. So there's so much that happens in our lives, right? And we doubt ourselves. You are not weak because you're unsure. because you're unsure, you're not weak. I've grappled with this so many times, and I want to leave it with you guys that just because you're not sure on what to do, it doesn't mean that you are weak. You're human, and you become strong because you decide. So please make those decisions. Do not be scared to make decisions. And just know that things will work out. Like if you put your head down and you stay committed, you stay in your lane, you don't compare yourselves with others, and remember that this is your own journey and it is on your own terms. And don't be scared to make decisions. Let decisions be part of your everyday life. Don't contemplate, don't procrastinate them, because those are the things, it's the very thing that keeps us going forward. But other than that, please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow the podcast, comment, and let's keep the conversation going. And I am going to be doing a lot of individual episodes and mixing with the interview episodes. But thank you for listening to this far. I really appreciate your help and your support, and through this we are touching lives. And thank you for being here and being part of this community. But other than that, until next time, Snalo Matuba Tuba. Peace.